If I asked you how the Roman Empire collapsed, what would come to mind? Burning cities, legions that have lost their discipline, emperors poisoned in marble palaces. We want to believe that great empires are destroyed from the outside, because that belief comforts us. A threat from outside is visible. You can prepare for it. You can take precautions. But Rome rotted from within. And at the center of that rot, there were no weapons, no armies. There was money. Rome collapsed not only because of invasions and wars, but also by destroying its own sound currency. And any modern economy that refuses to learn from this is playing the same game, only with more sophisticated tools, in more attractive packaging, and with more persuasive rhetoric. Let's set the stage. For centuries, the economic backbone of Rome was a single object, the silver denarius. First minted around 201 BC, this small coin was accepted across every corner of the empire. Soldiers on the frontier received their wages in it. Merchants trusted it more than gold. Ordinary people stored everything they had beneath it. A trader in Alexandria, a soldier in Britain, a baker on the streets of Rome, all trusted the same coin. The denarius was not just money, it was trust, a promise made solid in metal. Whoever held it in their hand was holding the full weight of Rome in their palm. This bond between money and power worked in one direction. As long as people believed in Rome, they believed in the coin. As long as they trusted Rome, they trusted the currency. And that trust ran so deep that the denarius was accepted far beyond Rome's borders, in lands the empire had never even reached. But running an empire is expensive. The border against the Germans, the Eastern Front against the Parthians, rebellions in North Africa, unrest that never settled inside. Every front needed soldiers, every soldier needed pay, every wage needed money. By the middle of the 2nd century, Rome could no longer cover its expenses with its revenues. Raising taxes was political suicide. Everyone knew it, including the emperors. You can't spend your way into the people's goodwill and then demand more taxes from those same people. So they turned to another path, reducing the silver content of the coin. They thought no one would notice, or perhaps they thought, even if someone notices, what can they do? The coin was still the same size, still carried the same emperor's face, still had the same name stamped on its edge, but the inside was no longer the same. Under Augustus, the denarius was 95% pure silver. Under Caracalla, that figure dropped to 50%. Under Gallienus, it fell below 5%. From 95% to 5%. Same coin, same size, same face. But now bronze on the inside, coated with a thin silver wash on the outside. When held in a wet hand, the silver plating would dissolve and stain your palm bronze. People felt the difference in their hands. The color was dull. The weight had dropped. Even the sound it made when dropped had changed. And everyone who noticed it arrived at the same conclusion. This money can no longer be trusted. Inflation was not a theory in an economics textbook. It was a raw reality that hit a farmer in the face when he walked to market in the morning. A measure of wheat that once cost a single denarius now cost dozens. Something that was 10 denarii today was 20 tomorrow, 40 the day after. Soldiers demanded pay raises because what they earned wasn't enough to buy groceries. Merchants refused the coin and preferred barter instead. They wanted another sack of goods for a sack of grain, not worthless metal. Local economies stepped entirely outside the money system. And what did the emperors do? They minted more cheap coins, more coins with no value, hoping that volume would replace worth. as if increasing the number of coins in people's pockets would stop anyone from asking why prices kept rising. That is how the vicious cycle was built. As trust fell, emperors minted more. As they minted more, trust fell further, and once this cycle began, stopping it was nearly impossible, because stopping it meant cutting spending. Cutting spending meant shrinking the army. Shrinking the army meant leaving the empire defenseless. No emperor made that choice. Each one passed the problem to the next. The crisis of the 3rd century erupted precisely on this foundation. Between AD 235 and 284, Rome struggled to survive through a period of chaos that lasted nearly 50 years. During that half-century, dozens of emperors ascended the throne. Most of them managed to rule for only a few months before being deposed, often under mysterious circumstances. Some were killed by their own soldiers. Others fell victim to a coup led by a rival general. Still others met their end on the battlefield. But beneath all that political storm was a single rotten foundation, a broken monetary system. Taxes could not be collected because the coins gathered were worthless. No one wanted to accept them. Farmers abandoned their land because the taxes they owed exceeded the value of what they produced. Trade networks collapsed because there was no longer a common measure of value. Cities shrank. Roads fell into disrepair. Bridges rotted. Rome was shrinking. And the more it shrank, the more it shrank. Then Diocletian arrived. He was a strong emperor, decisive. He wanted to save the system, and he believed he had found the solution. In 301 AD, he issued the edict on maximum prices. From grain to labor wages, from shoes to overseas goods, the state fixed the maximum price of more than 1,000 goods and services. Sellers who charged more would be executed. Death. Think about that. Death for a baker who sold bread above the set price. Death for a merchant who charged too much for cloth. The system would be held together by law, kept standing by force. The result was catastrophic. Prices cannot be fixed by law, because the problem was not the prices. Prices are only symptoms. The disease was the money itself. A fixed price set in worthless currency meant no one wanted to sell goods at all. The black market exploded. Official trade nearly collapsed entirely. Merchants hid their goods or sold them beyond the empire's borders. Market shelves emptied. People learned very quickly. No law can make a rotten coin whole. The real solution came from Emperor Constantine. In 312 AD, he introduced a new gold coin, the solidus, pure, reliable, consistent in content. The Eastern Roman Empire survived on that coin for centuries. This was one of the secrets of Byzantium's strength. As long as your currency is trusted, your empire lives. But for the Western Roman Empire, it was too late. The monetary system had rotted so deeply that there was no longer the strength to feed armies. No bond left to hold trade networks together. No shared trust left to keep people united. The barbarians at the gate finished the job, yes. But the real killer was in the treasury, already inside, already at work. The fall of Rome was not a single event. It was a long unraveling. And the sharpest thread of that unraveling had begun in a small silver coin. Now you might be asking, what does this have to do with us? Everything. Think about what Rome did. It handed its people a coin that looked the same but had been hollowed out from within. So no one would notice, no one would object, and they could keep on spending. Modern governments are doing the same thing. Only the tools have changed. Instead of minting coins, they print money. Instead of reducing the silver, they manipulate interest rates. Instead of devaluing openly, they use inflation to erase their debts. But the outcome is the same. Every single time, the people pay the bill. Wealth is destroyed, trust collapses. Rome learned this the hard way. And that lesson did not close with history. After the First World War, Germany faced the crushing weight of reparations under the Treaty of Versailles. Billions in gold marks. A figure the country could not produce, could not pay. The solution seemed obvious. Print money. Just as Rome had minted more cheap coins, the German government began printing marks. Slowly at first, then faster, then at an unstoppable pace. By 1923, Germany was inside a catastrophe unlike anything history had seen. Bread that cost 1 mark before the war was selling for 200 billion marks that year. 200 billion. Workers leaving factories wheeled their wages home in wheelbarrows, because the volume of paper money they needed to carry wouldn't fit in pockets or bags. Retirees woke one morning to find that everything they had saved over a lifetime was worthless. The money you deposited on Wednesday wasn't enough to buy a loaf of bread by Friday. And just as in Rome, not everyone was affected the same way. Debtors won. Because inflation wiped out their debts, they repaid far less in real value than what they had borrowed. Landowners won. Factory owners won. Those who held foreign currency won. Wage earners lost. Retirees lost. Those who had kept their savings in a bank account lost. When money loses its meaning, people look for meaning somewhere else. And you know what meaning the Germans found in those years? Economic despair became the soil for political madness. And from that soil, Adolf Hitler rose. The collapse of money doesn't just empty wallets, it shakes civilizations. Then came Zimbabwe. In the early 2000s, the government was struggling with land seizures that had driven production into freefall, mounting foreign debt, and an economy in contraction. The solution, again, seemed obvious. Turn to the printing press. By 2008, the Zimbabwean dollar was experiencing one of the greatest hyperinflations in history. The annual inflation rate was 89 sextillion%. The number was nearly impossible to pronounce. Price tags were being changed in the middle of the day. The price you saw in the morning was invalid by afternoon. Stores stopped writing prices altogether because the pen would run dry before the tag became obsolete. Zimbabwe was ultimately forced to abandon its own currency entirely. It tried to survive on foreign currencies, on the US dollar, on the South African rand. Trust in its own money had collapsed so completely that it became dependent on someone else's. The same scenario again. The people paid the price again. But perhaps you're thinking these are extreme examples. We live in a developed economy. It can't happen to us. Then look at 1971. The United States of America, the world's most powerful economy, its most trusted currency. And with a single signature, everything changed. President Richard Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. Until that moment, the dollar was backed by gold. You could walk into a central bank and exchange your dollars for gold. That backing was the anchor of the currency, the rope that tied it to reality. Nixon cut that rope. From that moment on, the dollar was no longer backed by gold. It was backed by trust in government. And just as in Rome, once you sever that anchor from something tangible, the desire to spend more becomes irresistible. Debt ballooned. The money supply expanded. Inflation became a chronic condition. We didn't see wheelbarrows. We didn't experience 100 sextillion% inflation. But something that cost $1 in 1971 costs more than $6 today. The banknotes look the same, the numbers look the same, but the inside has been hollowed out. The difference is this time the hollowing is done quietly, without being noticed, slowly, a little more each year. The game is always the same. Governments present inflation as growth. They hold up rising wages as proof of prosperity, while costs rise even faster. They frame borrowing as investment, even when it finances consumption. They point to rising stock markets as evidence of growing wealth, while the vast majority of the population holds no shares at all. The Roman emperors did nothing different. Looking at the coin, everything seemed normal. The same emperor's face, the same inscriptions, the same shape. There was just no silver left inside. Today's danger is in the scale. Rome's collapse was imperial in scope. Germany's hyperinflation was a national crisis. Zimbabwe's remained local. The rest of the world was barely touched. But today, the entire world stands on fiat currency, enormous debts. Central banks capable of printing trillions when a crisis breaks out. Global trade networks locked into one another. The next great collapse will not stay within a single country. It will spread globally. It will pass from country to country like a chain of falling dominoes. And history tells us who will pay the price. Not those who hold assets, those who depend on their salary, those who depend on their pension, those who trust the numbers sitting in a savings account. They will pay. So what does this tell you? First, inflation is not an accident. It is policy. It is a conscious choice. It is a silent tax that has rotted empires from within for 2,000 years. No one will tell you that you are paying this tax. No one will ask for your vote. But every morning you wake up, you will find that your money carries a little less value than it did the day before. Second, real wealth is not found in paper or in numbers on a screen. It is found in things that hold their value when money does not. Land, skills, productive work, tangible resources. In every great inflation crisis throughout history, those who held real assets survived. Those who held paper were ruined. Third, never assume stability is permanent. The Roman of the first century would laugh at you today. His coin was going to last forever. The German before the First World War would find the idea of wheeling wages home in a barrow absurd. The Zimbabwean of the 1980s, independence freshly won, believed wholeheartedly in his country's future. In every single case, the same story was written. When money loses its reality, society begins to unravel. First, the small things. Contracts are not honored. Plans cannot be made. No one can know what tomorrow holds. Then the large things. Trade stops. Production collapses. People stop trusting one another. Armies dissolve. Governments lose their legitimacy. And at that point, the barbarians at the gate make their entrance. But the real work was already done. In the treasury, silently, over years, over decades. Through small decisions that each seemed reasonable, each presented as inevitable, each making the next one necessary. And this is the key point to understand. Rome did not fall because of bad leaders. It showed us what can happen when those in power use money as a tool. It showed us just how fragile money really is, how quickly trust can be shaken, and how, once collapse begins, it becomes unstoppable. This fragility has never completely disappeared. It has merely taken on a different form. They say history doesn't repeat itself. That's true. The same currency, the same emperor, the same Rome will never return. But the same logic applies. The same pressures are building up. Somewhere. At some point. And if you can't see this, that pressure will eventually crush you. If you want to uncover the hidden secrets of history, you're in the right place. By subscribing to the channel, you can get one step closer to the truth.